With that said, none I'd like y'all to put your hands together and welcome to the stage to warm up coming tonight, the very talented Miss Mary Cole.
Thank you. To get this out there, I am pregnant. I like to get that out there first thing because I'm kind of at the point in my pregnancy where people look at me and they're like, she is either pregnant or she drinks way too much. Look at the general shape of my body and they're like, she either has an extra human face inside of her or beer is her main food group. Those are the only two. So yes, I am pregnant and it is getting really hard to hide. I hid it from my mom for a really long time because I wasn't sure how she'd take it. We're very different people. I'm an atheist. My mom's a Mormon. She has 6 kids. I'm still not 100% sure I want the one that's coming. So we're very different. I finally told her, I said, Mom, I'm pregnant. And she got this sort of concerned look on her face. And she said, Mary, I don't understand how you can have that divine urge to be a mother and not believe in God. To which I responded, I don't understand how you can believe in a God that didn't make your orgasm necessary for procreation. That's a really good point. But that's the hard thing about being the only atheist in a family full of Mormons, is they always think you're the crazy one. My dad's always saying things to me like, don't you want to be with God in the celestial kingdom forever and for eternity? And isn't that something you want for yourself? I'm like, yeah, Dad, I also want to get sorted into the Gryffindor house. And make out with Han Solo at 0 gravity, but you know what? Living in reality these days. It's hard at family parties when they treat me like I'm the stupid one. I want to be like, do you even know the origin stories of the religion you follow? Do you even know how that got started? Because Mormons are Christian. I don't know if you know this. They consider themselves Christian, like Christianity on its own. I feel like that was just like a coming of age story that went terribly, terribly wrong. You know, like some sexy centurion soldier was just waltzing through Mary, Mother of God's town one day, looking all Patrick Swayze. She got one look at those muscular calves and those strappy sandals, and she was like, take me. 6 to 8 weeks later, he's nowhere to be found. She doesn't want to get stoned to death, so she calls up Joe, that guy she friend-zoned freshman year of college. And he's like, yeah, baby, I'll take you out of town, because then you'll have to love me. And now we've had the Crusades, we've had the Inquisition, we've had a ton of homophobia. So if like my worldview is wrong and there is an afterlife, I'm sure Mary is there, like looking down on all of us going, you know, in hindsight, if he would have just pulled out or wrapped it in a goat's bladder like I asked, instead of insisting it would ruin the moment, all of those people would be getting their mail on Sundays right now. Mormonism itself is no better. I don't know if you guys know how Mormonism started, but it basically went like this. Joseph Smith was laying in bed as a 14-year-old boy, playing with his penis, as 14-year-old boys are wont to do, thinking to himself, man, it would be great if I could see more than one woman naked in my life. But these uptight 18th century bitches, they won't give it up till they're married. And I can only marry one. I need a game plan. So he gets out his parchment and his quill and he starts writing it down. He's like, 1, invent a gold book. 2, spend 20 years convincing people that it's real. And then 3, marry the shit out of their daughters. It's perfect. It's so perfect but so simple. And again, if my worldview is wrong and there is an afterlife, I know Joseph Smith is there looking up at modern day Mormons, going, you assholes, you ruined it. Not only are you only marrying one woman now, but you're not having sex with anyone before her or anyone after her. And all of this in a day and age where you can walk over to the China Blue and some bachelorette wearing a dick crown will suck you off for a goddamn Bud Light Lime. Are you kidding me? That's not the Mormonism I know and love. No, sir, and no thank you. The other thing about being raised Mormon is the way that they talk to you about sex, and that they don't. This was my whole understanding of sex growing up. It was something I was not to do under any circumstances until I was married. And then once I was married, my husband would have sex with me. He'd really like it and I'd get pregnant. That's my reward. That was my basic understanding of sex. So imagine my surprise one warm, sunny afternoon in my basement when I discovered orgasm. I thought I was quite the innovator. I was sure I had discovered something that nobody knew about and everyone was gonna wanna hear about. I had this fantasy about Oprah. Not that kind of fantasy. I had this fantasy that Oprah would fly me out to her show and her people would dress me up really nice. They'd give me like a smoky eye and put me in a really classy pantsuit. Keep in mind I'm 7. I'm 7 years old when this is happening. But they'd dress me up and they'd bring me on stage and Oprah would be like, Mary, and I'd be like, yes, Opes, because in the scenario, I have a nickname for her. And she would say, why don't you tell us about this new thing you've learned to do with your pee hole? And I would say, well, Opes, you know that scene in The Never-Ending Story where Atreyu is trekking through the mud and he's got his horse behind him and he's shirtless? Well, that's where you start. I've actually had a chance to watch The Never-Ending Story since I wrote that joke. I watched it with my stepkids. Turns out that's a real dark scene. You guys know the scene I'm talking about? He's going through the swamp, begging his horse, who is his best friend, not to give in to the sadness. And what does the horse do? He gives in to the sadness. And it makes me wonder, is that why I can't come until my husband tells me he's leaving me? Is that the lasting effect of that? I told that joke a while back, and afterwards another comic came up to me and she said, you know, you have a real blue style of comedy. And I was like, hell yeah, blue comic, red state. That's not what that means. She explained that blue was an old-timey theater term for crass or edgy, to which I responded, edgy? You have no idea. You have no idea the level of edgy I live. For example, if I don't like you and you don't like me back, well, I'm gonna go ahead and invite you to barbecues until you change your mind. So I don't like controversy. I'm so edgy, I felt guilty reading Fahrenheit 451 on my tablet. It was a Kindle Fire. I am so edgy, I would be the easiest person in the world to kidnap. Because I wouldn't want to make a fuss until I was 1,000% sure I was not misreading the situation. You could be shoving me in a trunk, and I'd be like, are we going to laugh about this later? Or, all right, guys, I've been Mary Cole. Have a good night.